So Exodus takes place a few generations after Genesis leaves off. And Exodus really explores the same issues as Genesis. That is, what does it mean for God to be God? And what does it mean for humans to be human? These are the issues and the questions that are explored in these books. So Exodus is about the Hebrews in slavery and their freedom out of slavery. In the beginning, we're told that the Hebrews are in slavery and they become more and more numerous. They take seriously this command that's found in Genesis to be fruitful and multiply. Well, they're so numerous that the new Pharaoh is concerned that they may end up trying to take over Egypt. And so the Pharaoh forces them into harder and harder slavery, more and more work, producing more and more bricks. And this is supposed to be some kind of birth control so that when the slaves get home at night, when the Hebrews get home at night, they won't want to be fruitful and multiply. Well, it ends up backfiring and they're even more fruitful and they're even multiply even more. And what I think this is doing is showing some kind of God-giving life in these horrible experiences. Well, Pharaoh has this ultimate plan of birth control, and that is to kill the baby boys. So he tells his army to throw the boys into the river and watch them die. Now, there are a few points in the Bible where I think that we should stop and try to identify with what's going on here, especially as the parent of two children, two baby boys. I can identify with these Hebrews. What are they going through? I mean, the pain that they are going through is unimaginable. All of their boys being put to death. One of them, Moses, lives. Moses grows up in the house of the Pharaoh, and he sees the pain that his people, the Hebrews, are going through as he grows up, and he ends up running away from his responsibilities. He runs away from helping them. He runs away into the desert. And in the desert, he has this experience where he's a shepherd, and he sees this bush that's burning, and it's not being consumed. What that means is the bush is burning, but the limbs of the bush, the branches of the bush, aren't falling off. Well, Moses thinks that this is a strange experience, and so he goes up to the bush and tries to take a look. Well, out of this bush comes this voice. It's the voice of God, right? And it gives the name of God. It says, I am what I am. Some people say it's, I will be what I will be. And there's kind of this argument about what this name means. And I think that argument is a decent one to have, but what comes next is more important. I hear the voice of those crying out to me. Go set them free. So God, the name of God, the identity of God is wrapped around hearing the voice of the victims. And Moses goes and tries to set them free. So Moses goes in and asks Pharaoh to let his people go. And Pharaoh says no. 10 times, right? 10 plagues. Each after Pharaoh says no, God sends these plagues. And there are 10 of them. And it culminates in the death of these baby boys. The firstborn. Innocent Pharaoh, innocent Egyptian boys are killed. Pharaoh's son, firstborn, is killed. And I think there are a few points in the Bible where we have to stop and try to identify with the people there. It's easy to identify with the Hebrews, right? Can we identify with the Egyptians? Going through this very painful moment in their history. I think that's what we are supposed to do. I think that's what the authors are setting us up to do. I mean, it's no accident that Pharaoh's plan ends in the death of innocent children. God's plan ends in the death of innocent children. Is this who God is? Getting caught up in this rivalry with Pharaoh, with other human beings, which one can be more violent? Is that who God is? I don't know. I mean, later on you have this experience that Moses has where Moses is leading them into the desert. And God hears the voice of the victims again, right? And says, here's this manna, here's this food that I will provide for you. Here's this water that I'll provide for you. All that I ask is that you share. Just share. Don't go back to Egypt. Don't go back to the ways of Egypt. Share with one another. Care for one another. But their freedom, if you remember, is based on violence. So where are they to go? How can they not go back to Egypt? They end up hoarding this food for themselves, and the food spoils. They end up being caught up in the greed of Egypt. And so much so that God says to Moses, you know what? These people aren't worth living. I'm going to annihilate them. I'm going to kill them all and start over with you, Moses. And Moses says, no, you're not. That's not who you are. You're the God who hears the cry of the victim. You're God who identifies with the suffering of others and seeks to set them free. So I think that what the Exodus is trying to deal with is how do you set victims, the oppressed, free without victimizing the oppressors? How do you set the oppressed free without then oppressing the oppressors so that the oppressors become oppressed? How do you stop the cycle? I think that's what this book, the Exodus, is trying to explore. And I think the answer is in when God just provides for the needs of the people, hears the voice of the victim and provides. And I think that's where we find God, the name that's tied up in hearing the voice of the victim. Not in creating victims, but in hearing the voice and trying to set people free without making more victims. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Thanks.